In recent years, thinking skills activities have become increasingly popular as teachers have recognised the benefits of offering students specific strategies to deepen their understanding and question their own thinking processes. In this programme, 2 advanced skills teachers will demonstrate 4 thinking activities which they've found to be most effective and engaging for their classes: mystery, concept maps, diamond ranking and rings or physical Venn diagrams. This is a Year 9 history lesson at St Benet Biscop High School in Bedlington, Northumberland. But teacher Doug Patterson has chosen a thinking skills activity called Mystery to help pupils get to grips with a contentious issue.
What I want you to think about and come to an answer to in about 20 minutes, half an hour, is whether or not you would have dropped the atomic bomb that was dropped at the end of the Second World War. Get hold of your evidence and just sort it into reasons to and reasons not to. All right, so give you a chance to have a look at what you've got.
Using the atomic bomb was a way for America to show it was the strongest country in the world. That's a reason.
2, it was kind of proven that they had power over the other countries and showing that they could do something like that. It was kind of like a warning to other countries, maybe.
If you think you're the strongest, you don't need to prove it. If you know you are, you know you've got the bombs.
Doug is an AST who trains other teachers in thinking pedagogies.
Mystery basically runs along the lines of there's one question and here's lots of information. So the sort of skills beyond the lesson that we're looking for is we're teaching them to organise their thoughts, we're teaching them to categorise different pieces of information like we do in everyday life. Human beings can't take in a vast amount of information, we look for ways of sorting it ourselves, so it's to help them with that process and make it explicit.
Or anyone?
A crucial part of any thinking approach is metacognition, the opportunity for students themselves to reflect on the processes they've been using.
Right, Amy, how are you going about sorting them?
And the ones against, we've got them on how much they suffered and like all the pictures, because they were like really skinny and scrawny, and on the other side they're all like reasons for to drop it.
How are you working out as a group? Are you just doing it?
Like, we read through it and like discuss where we think it should go. And, like,
okay, how are you reading it? Reading it to yourself, reading it to each other?
We read it out and look at it.
Okay, fair enough, right. So you reckon you've got them all sorted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
After discussing the evidence, Doug asked the pupils to prioritise their arguments. The activity is called a mystery because there's no single right or wrong answer, but pupils know that they'll have to give an explanation of any choice they make.
1945, surrendered.
I think that's quite an important one, but I don't think it would be the most important one because that's just like a consequence of what happened.
On the 6th of August 1945, an American plane dropped the first atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. I reckon that's pretty important because that's what caused all of this to happen.
Most of the students at the end, when you're talking about what you've done, there is an appreciation of other people's opinions, other people's answers, to help them with their own.
If that wouldn't have happened, then that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have dropped another one.
But then we've got pictures as well.
I think these are American soldiers which have been starved, I think. Not sure.
That'll link into that one as well, because that one's quite similar. Working in a group and listening to other people's opinions as well, I think that's really important because obviously there's lots of different people in the world and things, and you need to listen to what they're trying to say.
When you have the discussions, you can take in everybody's point of view, and you can include loads of different point of views in your essay, which means that it's more detailed and better, and you can come to your conclusion more detailed.
All of my teaching in this school is mixed ability, and I think that's educationally sound, but I also think it's perfect for these kind of activities. They're very much inclusive in that I feel that all students can access them at some level. What you will find, you can differentiate it if you wish by giving less information. Having said that, it is more the higher achievers who find them more threatening because there is more than one correct answer and to some extent they would rather have a correct answer. Josephine, what do you think is the main reason or the most important reason for dropping it?
We've chosen that Japan had been very cruel to prisoners of war and that they wanted revenge for it. So that was a good reason, because it wasn't as if they were just doing it to end the war. They were doing it for like a reason because they'd been very cruel.
Folks, what did you think was the top reason? Was it the same or different to Josephine's?
The Americans thought that the Japanese would never surrender.
Okay, why did you pick that?
Well, because if they thought that they were never going to give up, then they just had to like keep trying to get them to. So, and in the end, that's what they did.
Okay, Josephine, what do you think of their argument?
It's a valid point, but they've still killed so many people by doing that, and just to end a war isn't really a very good reason, to be honest.
If they were going to try to negotiate, you would think that they would have already tried, but that's obviously not working, so they have to take like stronger means of like effect, and this is probably the only way they're going to listen and pay any notice, because you can't talk to them because they probably won't listen.
At St Benet Biscop, thinking skills approaches have been embraced not just by Doug, but by the school as a whole.
I mean, certainly the senior management here very much support a thinking skills approach, and that's why they'll spend quite a lot of money in training staff and sending staff and having other people in to come and watch the lessons and the activities that we do. I mean, we believe as a school, certainly the senior management, that it does have an effect on attainment. As a sort of philosophical point, that if the kids are thinking more deeply and have a better understanding, then better grades will follow.
It's a big city though in Japan, so that's why it's destroyed. Yeah. So they should have just done it at the beginning and then nothing.
A lot of the activities make some of the subjects more personal.
Not if I knew what kind of damage.
We're not looking at whether the Americans made the right decision to drop the bomb, but we're looking at whether you would make that decision. So it's more personal and it's more, right, I'm being asked what I think now about this. I'm not being asked what I think about other people. So you're happy with your answer then that no, you wouldn't drop it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, I think I probably would.
Go on.
Because even though it killed that amount of people and injured so many, it stopped the war, and the war could have gone on for a lot longer, could have kept going and killed a lot more people, and they were torturing people.
Right, so which one do I think is more important? The one where all the people were dying, or the people who died and people are still dying because of the effects?
Died and people dying because there's more and more people dying, so even after the blast, so I think that one's quite important. Yeah.
Whilst every pupil will be given an opportunity to answer the question, they also have to use negotiation skills to reach a group decision.
As a group, Kate, would you have dropped the bomb?
We wouldn't, because it's injured too many people, and it would just... The people that it did kill were innocent, they hadn't really done anything, so we wouldn't drop it.
Yeah, because if it didn't drop it, the war would have went on, and before all this happened, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
It's not just one answer with one question. There's like a range of different answers for that question.
At the beginning of the lesson I was like, no, they shouldn't have dropped the bomb, it was wrong, all them people killed. But after like reading the evidence and looking at the pictures and then like thinking it through and listening to others, I changed my mind and say I would drop it, because then it stopped the war and it would have saved loads of other people's lives.
Hands up for yes, I would have dropped it, I would have made that decision, yeah? To compare bits of information with others and make reasoned judgments based on what they think is more important. So you've got prioritising, so categorising, interlinking, interrelating the information, how does this link into that? And then, but always trying to push it towards a conclusion or an answer, if you like. As in, this is what we believe, but this is why we believe it, based on the evidence they've got.
"200 miles away in Deeping, St James, South Lincolnshire, AST Phil Wood has come to understand the importance of teaching thinking as well as teaching knowledge.
The way that I see it is that anybody has what I call a cognitive landscape, which is simply their own personal view of the world. And I suppose I felt this early on in my teaching career when I was teaching a syllabus where there were lots and lots of units we had to get through, so we were sort of buzzing through stuff really, really quickly. What I was tending to find was that we were teaching just isolated little bits of knowledge and understanding that weren't linked into their own experience and what they knew and what they understood. And therefore, it seemed to me that that's why they could hold them consciously in their minds for short periods of time when they were revising. Go into an exam hall, get all the information down, but if you then perhaps asked them 8 weeks later to do the paper again, they just wouldn't have any of that information close to hand. They would have forgotten it all because they hadn't actually deep learnt it. So what I'm sort of trying to do with a lot of the exercises, like the upper sixth work on holistic thinking, is to spend a lot more time linking those areas back into their cognitive landscapes. We're talking explicitly about linking both back into the cognitive landscape and also linking between those different areas. And therefore, if you like, the boundaries of that landscape go further out. But what it means is that you're having to spend much more time and explicitly spending time on the links between areas of knowledge and understanding rather than on the knowledge and understanding purely by itself.
The A-level geography, which these Year 13 students at the Deeping School are studying, includes synoptic papers which straddle different aspects of the subject. The holistic thinking approaches which Phil has adopted lend themselves perfectly to synoptic work at this level. As a revision exercise, Phil presents the students with a single image of the River Ganges.
All I want you to do for the next 5 minutes is what we've done before on 2 or 3 occasions, and simply just use this image to create as holistic idea of what is involved as possible. Okay, so what areas of geography are in that image and how do they link together? As a geographer, I just naturally work spatially, and therefore imagery in that sense is important. And I think the other element of using images is that the geography is then always within a context. It's always within a real world example, whatever that example might be. So you just get a huge richness within the resource itself that they're then trying to deconstruct and see the elements of, but then also fit it back together in a linguistic format. Once you've started labelling things, you then need to start thinking about how they fit together.
We found doing this idea of synoptic quite difficult when we started, and I think if you obviously start being taught that at a younger age, you'll find it easier and easier, and by the time you get to our age, it'll be very easy to synoptically link things.
If this is the River Ganges, think about where it comes from. Think about all the various physical geography and conservation elements that are going on that may actually be linked to that photograph and why the Ganges looks like it does.
It does make you think better in a way, because you can look at things and sort of link them to other ideas. Especially in geography, you can link the human aspects with the physical aspects.
Where did most of the Muslims go? Pakistan. Okay. So if you're saying that there aren't many Muslims in the picture, you're absolutely right, and that links into the idea of historical migrational patterns, which you've just done in your essay. Links into the whole idea of religion again. Okay, 30 seconds left.
The next step is for students to record their thoughts in the form of a concept map, a visual representation of the links between different geographical issues.
So we started off with essentially the Ganges as potentially the focus for the image. Let's start building it up, therefore. What elements of geography are actually at play here and are linked to this image?
Okay. Fluvial processes.
In what kind of way?
It was a river, so therefore erosion, transportation.
Yeah, there could be pollution in it as well. So.
Okay, there's most likely going to be some pollution involved. Yeah, anything else?
Oh, a bit of human management.
Okay.
Since there's no trees holding topsoil in place, rain will wash it into the river, which will give a bit of transportation.
There's a lack of water facilities because they're using the river to wash. Definitely approaching the thought process differently, because in GCSE it's more sort of human geography, physical geography, rather than pulling them together.
What makes you think it's a shanty town?
Yeah, it's densely populated.
Population. Okay. What I'm doing is really just trying to give them, I suppose, a suppleness of mind, so that what they're able to do is sort of say, well, okay, then we can take a picture that at first glance seems very simple, but if you actually start looking at all the various elements, it's actually highly complex, has huge elements of the subject within it, and they all sort of interrelate with one another to give you what you're actually seeing. And that is an incredibly high-order thinking skill. Rather than sort of give you some geographical understanding, which is what we're normally about, what we're essentially doing here is trying to get you to be geographers and seeing the world through a geographer's eyes.
Back at St Bennet Biscop, Doug is introducing another thinking activity to help Year 9 question their thoughts on factory conditions in the 19th century.
I'm going to give you 9 conditions, and I want you to sort them out into a diamond rank. So you're going to have to decide what you think is the most unpleasant condition at the top, and then all the way down, yeah? So you got your 9? Yep. Sort them out.
Right, constant noise, that isn't that bad.
Constant noises. That'll be at least, because that's making answers.
I think try and use the language if I can. So today I want you to prioritise these, remind me what that means. Today I want you to evaluate this evidence. Remind me what that means, to try and give them the language in order to talk about their own thinking. Okay. So why do you think that's the least unpleasant?
Working in high temperatures would be difficult, because if you're working 90 degrees, it's already hard enough working in 30 degrees.
So isn't it that makes that unpleasant? Because you can do it for 5 minutes, can't you?
Yeah, but they get beaten for working longer than 5 minutes, so if they're working longer than 5 minutes.
So isn't it the length of time they work that makes it bad? I particularly like diamond ranking because as a teacher it is the quickest activity to make, and it's the simplest to make, so it's the least time-consuming activity to prepare. And I think it fits anywhere. Again, it's a kind of prioritising exercise, but it is different to just putting them down in a list, because you're forcing a discussion on equal worth, and you're forcing a judgment. And the students are now well aware that they can't just put the top and bottom, that they will have to justify and explain every single position within the diamond. What have you got as your most unpleasant condition?
Infants employed to do dangerous jobs.
Why do you think that's the most unpleasant, Richard?
Because young infants don't really know about safety and what to watch out for and things like that.
Often, nearly all of the activities will lead to some kind of assessment at the end. What I tend to look for is I would usually finish a diamond rank with asking the students to write down their top 3 and their bottom 1 and why, because that tends to be a conclusion to a question. Well, if they've got their top 3 worst and their bottom 1 and they've written down why they thought so, then it'll lead to a better written answer. So what did you have as most unpleasant?
Damp, suffocating atmosphere.
Why do you think that is worse than theirs?
Because if it's really suffocating and stuff, and you wouldn't be able to breathe properly and you wouldn't be able to concentrate on what you were doing, so you're more likely to get hurt. What
I would aim to do is just go round and drop a few thoughts, so if you re-stimulate the conversation and get them to think back over what they've already thought. Okay, so we've heard different people's opinions on what they think is the most unpleasant, what they think is the least, and there were different ones again. But did anyone change their minds from the first time they put them into a diamond? Which one did you change?
The bottom one.
Why?
Because we're listening to other people and we thought that the smells of people's bodies and that, people got used to it, but the constant noises, then people got deaf and it affected them more than what that would have.
Okay, so you've changed your mind because you've got more information? Is that why you changed?
Yeah. Because we listen to other people's opinions, which help to change your mind from these two.
So is there a rule there for lessons in general?
Well, if you listen to others, then you'll find out more, and then you'll change your mind most of the time.
Towards the end, I might try and pull out the skills that they'd used in the lesson. So if you like, the fact that it's history suddenly becomes irrelevant, and the conversation is more like which skills have you used in this lesson. Where we've prioritised, well, when and how did you prioritise? Why is that an important skill? Would you use it in other classes? Would you use it out of school?
If you've learned how to do it in school, like when you're at home, you can use the information that you've got from your books, and then you could gather, like, get tips and like notes and things, and put them all together at home, and then you can sort out where you think it goes, and it helps like build your essay up.
I think with a lot of these activities you can throw a lot of information at the students, and they start to sort it out themselves and start to get a feel for the content and what the topic's about, and then more confident to go into it in further detail. I want us to examine the causes. I want us to come to some kind of conclusion as to whether or not Chartism was political, economic or social.
Year 12 is preparing to write an essay on the causes of Chartism. They're exploring the causes through a physical Venn diagram.
So, Katie, you're up. What's on yours?
Unemployment rose as machines replace people, and I think that is social and economic.
Because?
Because it affects everybody's lives, so it's like social, like they're not getting the wages that they should be getting, and it's economic because it is relating to money and that they can't afford to buy food anymore.
But it's not political?
No.
So where's it going to go?
It's going to go in the middle of these.
Okay, so do you want to make this... On the face of it, it's a clear sort of sorting exercise. They could do that on their own, and therefore there wouldn't be the challenge and the thought process that I'm looking for. Again, it comes up to having to justify your opinion. It was teaching them to reflect on their ideas. It was teaching them to think again about their original thoughts and answers.
Chartism was a continuation of the tradition of radical politics. I think it's political. Because it's like been around for ages. Like since Thomas Paine wrote his book in 1790, people have always been challenging like their social position, because he said that every man had the right to a vote.
Actually, I think it might go on social as well.
Because?
Because if it's the people who are challenging what their rights are, then doesn't it go into a social factor as well?
So do you want to move it?
Yes, if Sam will let us.
Sam?
But people wouldn't have any complaints if the government had got it right in the first place.
If you think radical politics only occurred because of social discontent, people made them radical, and I think it has to go in social because
it caters to every single person in the class, not just like the whole class and just gives one technique. It can give you lots of different approaches to it, which makes you respond more to what he's asking you to do, what he's asking you to think about as well.
So where are you going to put it? All of the thinking skills activities we've done today and that I do hit perfectly the visual, audio and kinesthetic, and to some extent they all hit the kinesthetic best. We're all throwing our ideas into the middle, and we're literally all throwing them into the middle and bouncing them around to pull out an answer. We're not debating or trying to browbeat, but just pull all our ideas together. Okay, Mandik, which cause?
In all his classrooms, Doug has established an environment which promotes dialogue and an appreciation of others' opinions.
So is everyone happy with that one?
No.
Why not, Vicky?
Because people wouldn't riot if they're not hungry.
So where are you going to put it? So what does it tell us about the causes of Chartism?
Mainly political, social, with an economic argument that can be brought up if you want to.
Okay, turn away from the table.
Once students feel that they've reached some sort of conclusion, Doug pushes their reasoning even further.
Right. Which ones are in the wrong place and why?
This one here.
Okay, so...
Because it isn't just a social conflict.
The point of getting them to turn their backs and moving them around was so they would then have to revisit the information. Also to cause a certain amount of cognitive conflict, so they're reinforcing, actually, their reasons for the placing in the first place.
Again, there's time at the end of the lesson to discuss the thinking processes which have allowed students to reach their conclusions.
Okay, let's have a look at what we've ended up with now. It's different to the one we had before, isn't it?
It's not the same answer, but it's a better answer because now you can debate more and it helps you see other views.
When you turned your backs and I put them back in separately, what was the point of that then?
It makes us think twice and look back at our answers and think, yeah, do I really want to be influenced by other opinions, or do I really think in my gut instinct that that was right?
Okay, so even if you don't change it, is it worth doing that process?
Yes, it's always best to reflect.
Now we know other people's points, and when we write essays, we're always going to research them again, and we're always going to put information like this in. And then now we don't just have our opinions, we have other historians' opinions.
Yeah, okay. And I like the way that you think we're all historians, which we are, doing A-level history. All right.
I think a historian takes into account everything that happened. It's not just one event, it's the context at the time, and they look at how that period could affect the main issue that they're discussing. And I think that they're not frightened to pick one opinion and follow it all the way.
The students who will do the best in their history A-levels in the summer are the ones who can prioritise an argument, evaluate it, but also show that there is counter-arguments out there, show the other side of an argument and come to a reasoned conclusion. And that's what I would argue most of the activities are aimed at doing.
There are plenty of easy, practical activities like those used by Doug and Phil to develop higher level thinking amongst our learners. The techniques don't have to be subject specific. They can be used to encourage students to evaluate opinions and question their reasoning and approaches in any thinking classroom. The trick is simply to let process complement content.
We tend to think of thinking skills as sort of very much an occasion. And you sort of build thinking skills in by doing a particular exercise. What I'm trying to do is see thinking skills as a global feature and trying to just get students in general thinking about things and working things out for themselves. So I don't see thinking skills as a staged event. I see thinking skills as an underlying sort of process, foundational process that allows students then to make sense of what they're learning.
I enjoy chipping away at their thoughts and continually following up what they say, and I think it makes it more fun for me because I'm getting a deeper and deeper thought process out of them, and I think they enjoy the challenge as well. There's definitely challenge in those lessons, they're not games. Mystery basically runs along the lines of there's one question and here's lots of information. So the sort of skills beyond the lesson that we're looking for is we're teaching them to organise their thoughts, we're teaching them to categorise different pieces of information like we do in everyday life. Human beings can't take in a vast amount of information. We look for ways of sorting it ourselves, so it's to help them with that.
Into that one as well, because that one's quite similar. Working in a group and listening to other people's opinions as well, I think that's really important, because obviously there's lots of different people in the world and things, and you need to listen to what they're trying to say.
When you have the discussions, you can take in everybody's point of view, and you can include loads of different point of views in your essay, which means that it's more detailed and better, and you can come to your conclusion more detailed.
All of my teaching in this school is mixed ability, and I think that's educated evidence they've got.
And I suppose I felt this early on in my teaching career when I was teaching a syllabus where there were lots and lots of units we had to get through. So we were sort of buzzing through stuff really, really quickly. What I was tending to find...
This idea of synoptic quite difficult when we started. And I think if you obviously start being taught that at a younger age, you'll find it easier and easier. And by the time you get to our age, it'll be very easy to synoptically link things.
If this is... Because you can look at things and sort of link them to other ideas. Especially in geography, you can link the human aspects with the physical aspects.
Where did most of the Muslim world through a geographer's eyes?
You said out of school.
If you've learned how to do it in school, like when you're at home, you can use the information that you've got from your books, and then you could gather, like, get tips and like notes and things, and put them all together at home, and then you can sort out where you think it goes, and it helps like build your essay up.
I think with a lot of these activities, you can throw a lot of information at the students, and they start.
It caters to every single person in the class, not just like the whole class and just gives one technique. It can give you lots of different approaches to it, which makes you respond more to what he's asking you to do, what he's asking you to think about as well.
So where are you going to put it?
All of the things